bans here early on from FlyQuest. A lot of targeting APA. Talia, to me, has been his best champion. Ziggs is the one obviously most associated with him. And so they're saying, you know what, we are actually going to target you in pick ban. We're not going to allow APA to have comfort here to try to grab an edge for quad in this matchup.
Yep, it's those two mid laners alongside the Vi banned out for FlyQuest. Over on the other side, the guaranteed Varus and Pantheon bans alongside an Azir ban from TL. Yunara, first pick of the entire draft here for FlyQuest, putting priority on that new AD carry from Massu.
Yeah, very high priority on this, and I do think it is a bit of a takeaway there from Yeon, because Yeon is one of the people who has actually really liked to play it, right? You know, he has been one of the early adopters of this pick, so they are trying to deny it from him. But some big power picks immediately grabbed up on the other side. Yuuji had a really strong Trundle game last week. He's going to be able to bring that out alongside Impact on his Rumble, which I think is his most comfortable carry right now for sure. So you are getting comfort for both of these guys. You're getting two really strong meta champs. And it's going to be interesting to see where they go. Bwipo has always liked this Galio counter pick into the Rumble, so we are going to have that Galio answer up in the top lane. And then for FlyQuest, you're looking for ways in alongside that Galio. So you're looking for some sort of hard engage, the person that you're going to be ulting in on when you're diving in.
Exactly. Galio's a great second punch, but you need the first fist to lead the way, and that will be the Wukong here. Also means both teams are starting off with a good combination of a strong AP solo laner with a strong AD jungler. The thing that FlyQuest also has to keep in mind is that anybody they draft that's going to be like building tanky stats, anybody that's going to be a true frontline, is in a much more compromised position than they would otherwise be. I think that's one thing that we got to see yesterday. The classic Trundle versus Sejuani hard counter that just makes Sejuani feel completely pointless. Ooh. So over on the other side, it looks like we'll get Cassiopeia for APA. So both solo laners here on the side of Team Liquid, tons of AP DPS.
But this is really interesting because, you know, is this a read that they're saying, oh, Galio is going mid, or are they actually just that comfortable to pick it blind? And I think the answer is they're feeling that comfortable to pick it blind. They're going to have to be throwing down some of these protection bans, though. Obviously, Azir is already gone. They're taking Orianna off the table. Generally, Cassio really struggles into some of these long-range matchups where you're just getting constantly poked away at, right? Because you are much more medium range. You kind of have to get relatively close. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like a Viktor or something along those lines also banned away. But obviously, you know, you are playing against Galio. You are playing against Wukong. The Cassio can be quite effective against those types of champions. It's just very atypical to see Cassio when it is not picked as a counter either to a composition or to a specific lane matchup. Kind of like we saw it yesterday from Shopify, which I thought was super effective when they left open Yone on red side, picked the Cassio as a counter, and it wasn't just Yone, it was versus a 4 melee comp where Cassio has such easy access to those targets.
Exactly. Cassiopeia is like a slithering turret. She's really good when something comes towards her, but anything with that long range.
Like it's going to be a good stretch for NA. Let's go!
Yeah, this is pretty powerful here. That's, what is it, 6 in a row? That's a lot. We're getting on the Korea level, bro. We're leveling up, apparently. Okay. Well, we've got the Orianna and Bard banned out here by Team Liquid. Lucian and Xayah banned out from the FlyQuest side. I always like to see a ban towards Xayah if you're going to be playing something like Wukong and Galio combined, because it's so easy for her to escape that initial big engage. But now we'll see. What is Yeon going to play after that Yunara was taken away?
I mean, Ezreal, Xayah are the two that I always think of, and then there's things, you know, like Tristana, which is more atypical, of things that can kind of stay safe. I don't think we would get the Draven. That would just be way too risky. So instead, they're going for a lot of counter engage here. I think Neeko is very powerful. Also pairs well with the Ezreal if that is the option that they want to go towards that I was talking about, because then you have a ton of poke in lane. And now you're looking at, all right, you're playing a dive comp because you have Galio Wukong. You can't really just like pull out of that and say, ah, just kidding, we're going to poke.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to dive through, you know, Rumble, into the Cassio ult, into Miasma, into the Pop Blossom, all of these tools that are going to make things very, very difficult. Massu and Busio are going to be playing the Yunara with the Karma. Yunara pretty popular alongside Enchanters. You know, does function well with things like Braum and Taric and solo queue as well, but Enchanter's quite popular for it. Okay. And I think when you're seeing the Neeko come out, if you go for just like a weak laning support, like a melee support, you're probably going to get smacked, right? Because you're probably going to be laning against Neeko plus something like the Ezreal. The Viktor wouldn't surprise me at all. That was the ban that I was kind of calling for when I saw this Cassio come through alongside that Orianna. But because they didn't decide to actually ban it, they instead wanted to take away Busio's Bard. That does mean that frees up Quad to get this really good matchup. And now it is just finding out, is it going to be something like Jhin, Ezreal? You know, these are both picks that can stay safe. We can see some of the kind of less common options as well, but generally in pro play, you see Jhin, Ezreal, Xayah as the three, like, I must be safe marksmen.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's kind of up to those. Instead, he's going to go towards Corki. So he's playing more lane dominant here. It is less safe, but of course you still do have some safety from the Valkyrie.
Yeah.
But the amount of poke that you can actually put in, if you're landing, you know, a Tangle Barbs into a Foss Bomb, like that can be just lights out for a laning phase pretty much immediately. The amount of upfront damage that they do have is pretty powerful. So Yeon and Core going for a lot of power here. They don't really have any traditional forms of engage. Like their only real engage is pillar someone in and then get a CoreJJ ult or something like that.
And it's a sneaky Neeko from the flank, right? Like that's kind of it. Over on the other side, you do have that big wombo combo of the Wukong and the Galio, but again, it does need to be well coordinated because if you miss with that, there's no engage left at all, right? Like Viktor can't engage. Karma can, I guess, run at you kind of fast, but that's not a
Karma
true
tether.
Yeah, that's not really going to. I'm not really sold on that one. So both sides, I need to see big moves coming out from the engage that they do have, since it is pretty limited.
And to me, I honestly think that TL will succeed more so if they're not the ones engaging, if they're instead absorbing the engage. Yeah. That requires you to be first to the objective. That requires you to have advantageous positioning. Because if they can actually do well in the early lanes, if they're the ones first to a dragon, and FlyQuest is trying to engage into that composition, it becomes very, very difficult. Like I said, you're going through Pillar, going through Miasma, you're going through a Rumble Equalizer, you're going through a Pop Boss of all of these tools to try to dive in onto the back line where then Cassio can still hit you with an ult. Corki can be poking away on you. So I think that is really how TL wants to play. They want to absorb the initial engage, kite it out, you know, get away from that Cyclone, from the Galio's ultimate, and then win the fight from there by focusing down the front line. I think that's really where they will have their success, where FlyQuest does really want to find that first effective punch like you're talking about, be able to get that catch with the Wukong, with the Galio, and try to delete someone just like that. We do have a quick pause here, but hopefully it's not going to be much of an issue.
Yeah, hopefully no full computer replacement like we had yesterday. We'll see. We'll bring Raz out to the stage and have him do some push-ups or something if it is. But right now, I am excited to see if Team Liquid can have that coordination like you're talking about. I really like the call to go for the, hey, we have to be coordinated on a team level, on a macro level to make this comp work in draft number 1. Because if you come out here and end up not being first to those objectives, if everybody's not on the same page and you're not syncing up correctly to absorb those engages and play those fights out in an advantageous way like you're talking about, that just tells me, okay, scrap these strategies. We got to play for more simple head-on type of stuff for the rest of the series.
Yep. If this doesn't work, you're going or Nautilus.
Yep. It's like everybody gets a go button and we all go together.
Exactly. But I think that they could pull it off. I do feel like it's a pretty strong draft. And it does give them a very clear way to play the fight. It's not necessarily about finding that big engage, like you said, but they do have still very clear win conditions. We are just getting some audio checks here from Yeon. As he got in game, I guess wasn't happy with how the audio was sounding. So we have people helping him with that right now, and hopefully that will be able to get sorted out. Of course, they do all their audio checks and tech checks prior to the game starting, but sometimes things don't end up perfect for the players, and they want to get everything just right before the series does kick off. It's going to be interesting, though. I mean, if TL can actually really compete here, whether they win or lose, if they can have a close competitive series against FlyQuest, that does really change the expectations going forward in the elimination phase, as well as going into the LTA playoffs, where we are going to have our top teams battling out against the LTA South teams. Because everyone really had been feeling this split that it's like, yeah, okay, it's C9 and it's Fly, and that's that, right? Those are our top 2 teams. Those are the top 2 teams that are going to be going to Worlds. That's what everyone has been feeling. I think last split and most of this split. But if TL and Shotfly yesterday can kind of rise and start to challenge these top 2 teams, then it becomes so much more of a question and much, much harder to actually predict what's going to happen in the playoffs.
Yeah, having C9 already in that lower bracket also makes going down to the lower bracket a lot scarier of a prospect, because it means you're going to have seemingly a much more challenging opponent. at the very beginning, right? Sometimes teams will play more fast and loose in the upper bracket because they want to experiment, because they have that second life. In the lower bracket, though, everybody's, you've got to be locked in. You can't just be letting strategies stay in your back pocket for next season or something. You've got to be ready to go. And I think for any team that ends up in that lower bracket now, the competition is just that much more intense. But of course, like I said at the top of the day, starting off your upper bracket run against the team that everybody has been afraid of facing the entire year long is a tall task for Team Liquid.
Yeah, and it is really, really difficult to also just try to forget all of the previous matchups that you've had, right?
Yeah.
FlyQuest basically does not lose against teams that are not named C9, over the last couple splits. They have been so incredibly dominant. Everyone that I talk to, tells me about how incredible FlyQuest is in scrims. We saw it after the end of Split 2. They posted their scrim win rate. It was something like 80%, which is pretty stellar. So it's hard to just kind of try to forget about all of that, right? If you're losing 4 out of every 5 games against a team that you play all the time, it's hard to then go into a best of 5 and say, yep, we're going to win 3 out of 5 against this team that
easy money
almost always beats us. So we'll see, if TL can lock in. Of course, they are also known as a really good scrim team. Busio was just talking on stage as well when I was interviewing him about how Yeon and Core are 2 of the laners that they really like to practice against most because they play the matchups really well. They're really aggressive when they should be. And they have had that reputation for quite a long time as being, such aggressive laners who really can push the edge in these games. And finally, we are onto the rift here. Game 1, FlyQuest versus TL. They are kicking off their elimination phase here in the upper bracket.
I am ready for this, man. Remember, the winner of this one will get to continue here in the upper bracket, play against Shopify Rebellion next time. We get to see that upper bracket competition, as we do have nothing super crazy here at level 1 in this one. And early on, I think you were talking about it a little bit during the pause. I do believe we have a graphic showcasing what you were talking about with FlyQuest versus C9 and then FlyQuest versus literally everybody else. The difference in those records, the difference in those performances, as FlyQuest have been so dominant so far this year with their performance in the LTA. Split 2, you can see, versus Cloud9, they were 8-5, still a winning record, a good record. But Split 2 and 3 combined, 21-1 versus literally everyone else. They lost a single game to Shopify Rebellion, and that's it. Everybody else got completely wiped out.
And unfortunately for TL, they are part of the everybody else.
Yes, they are part of the 21 losses.
1-21 against them. So that is really intimidating, but that is also the reality. And I just find it so interesting because FlyQuest is kind of what TL was last year, right? TL was the team we were really talking about as that team that was carrying our international hopes, right? That they were the team that was pushing us forward. And FlyQuest has kind of taken the mantle away from TL, and TL is trying to get back towards that. And you can see how aggressively they want to trade here even early on. Both teams trading out those summoners, heal and barrier use on both sides early just for these aggressive trades.
And you're talking about last year's performance and how it kind of swapped away from Team Liquid being the hope over to FlyQuest doing it. And it really was such a stark contrast between the first half of last year and the second half. Remember, the first half of last year, FlyQuest did go to MSI in 2024, and it was the most abysmal performance North America has ever had at MSI. It's the first time North America had ever been eliminated in international play-ins, right? Like, it was a truly poor performance, but they came back, they bounced back, they used it to motivate themselves, then went to Worlds, got the toughest possible opponent in quarterfinals in Gen G, and took them to 5 games. I remember seeing you jumping up and down at the caster desk when we got to Game 5 from the sheer excitement of this team.
Of course.
And ever since then, FlyQuest has just been building on that excitement, building on that hype, and building on that hope that, hey, these guys are the real deal.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and they proved it again, going 5 against AL. This year at MSI, obviously, pushing them to the absolute limit. They have been a really fun team to watch, and also shows the value of when you get a strong, cohesive unit of keeping them together for a while, so they can actually improve, right? Teams change players out so incredibly fast these days. As Bwipo just CCing Impact through that overheat. I don't think he has his phase rush up yet. Oh, it just came back off, but he's going to have to walk off. I mean, he's out of mana, is pretty comfortable with this matchup where basically all you are doing is constantly looking for the poke, and then, when you have phase rush up, you can go for an aggressive trade.
All right, APA getting, a fast few Twin Fangs there into quad, recognizing he had the opportunity while the cooldowns were off.
And you can see if you don't get those kind of trades, you are just going to get slowly whittled down. You know, APA before that trade was like 20% HP to 60 or 70, right? You have to be able to find those opportunities to trade back. Otherwise, all that happens in this kind of matchup is you just occasionally get hit by a laser, hit by a laser, hit by a laser. Like, he doesn't even have to auto-attack you or use his Q. He's literally just E-poking you through the wave over and over and over until you have to go back to base. And that's kind of how the matchup ends up feeling a lot of the time against some of these long-range champions. So as the Cassio, you have to be confident in sidestepping the ability, sidestepping the laser, and stepping forward to try to actually hit your Q and get some Twin Fangs in, get some damage back.
I mean, it's what you were talking about in draft, right? It was very surprising to see this locked-in blind for APA because of the fact that Cassiopeia's good matchups and bad matchups feel so very different because it's all just locked around, does someone have to trade with her within her range? If not, Cassiopeia's got the pressure on her.
Exactly, and I mean, you know, sometimes, you know, these matchups can be really hard, but you can just kind of get good and dodge everything, right? Yeah. If you're not getting hit by the lasers, all of a sudden it's not a bad matchup anymore. And then, you know, compositionally, I can definitely see how it can look good. Both teams, of course, have lane swap. We saw that Bwipo and Impact both used their TP to get down towards bot side, and the dual lanes have matched up towards that top side. And so far, you know, pretty darn close game. We're dead even just about, you know, less than 100 gold separating these two teams. It's just kind of as they're picking up the minions. It is going back and forth.
Okay, let's see if Yuuji can find anything here. Maybe just a flash away from Quad. Takes a bite out of him there, but Quad stays calm, loses about half the health bar, but no summoner spent.
Yeah, Quad may be like overbaiting a little bit. You know, he's not playing Phase Rush. You do have to be somewhat respectful of that Trundle pillar. He is playing Airy for the poke because he is just trying to kind of slowly whittle APA down. Obviously, he wanted to waste Yuuji's time, so keep him interested. But he did allow him to get in and get a good chunk down, which helps APA quite a bit because both these guys have used their TPs. Bwipo in a tough spot, so Inspired is just here, not so much for a gank, but more just to reset the wave, because Bwipo needs to actually base. And that's why Impact's going to try to hold this. But it does get a little bit weird to hold this many minions when you're that low, so I think he realizes, you know what, I can't actually just freeze this. I just need to clear out the wave and either use the equalizer on the next one and just hard push it, or just try to slowly push it out yourself. And I think this is actually the better choice because, you know, Bwipo has no TP. So by using the equalizer here, he's going to deny probably at least the 3 melees, I would expect. Well, excuse me, no, because it'll go to the cannon. So he's actually, we'll see if he actually does lose the cannon or not. He loses the first melee, and I think he'll lose that cannon. Should be able to get XP for it, but that still kind of sucks.
Yep.
So that's kind of what you're trading the ulti for, is just a little bit of denial of experience, some gold, and being able to get that good base off with tempo.
Yep, and I mean the timing was perfect too because he hits level 6 right as he cleared that previous wave, so immediately just having the equalizer on the timer that he needs. Also that little bit of extra tempo that he gets through using it means that he's able to go up there, help Yuuji out, starting up that tankier than usual Earth Drake, excuse me. That means they can collect that one. Easy peasy, no contest from FlyQuest. And honestly, Team Liquid's been having a solid first 7 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely no issues as far as the laning phase goes. It is quite even across the board. You know, a couple CS here or there separating the teams. You know, Yeon is up a couple CS. APA actually up a couple CS now, you know, with the help of that gank. And with honestly just some good laning from himself, he has been able to get himself in a comfortable spot. And when you get to Catalyst without any issues, Catalyst really does make you a lot harder to actually poke down. You have a lot of sustain in with that. So APA feeling pretty comfortable, going to take another base. Likely, I thought he was going to grab a tier here, but he's just going to be sitting on that Dark Seal as well as the refill. So be interesting to see if he gets a late tier or if he's actually just going to try to skip tier in this build.
We'll keep an eye on that as we continue moving forward. Looks like our bottom lane is about halfway to level 6 for most of them, except for Yeon, who there is a bigger EXP difference between the two players for the side of Team Liquid. Since Yeon was left to his own devices while CoreJJ roamed, it meant that Yeon does get to accelerate a little bit. And of course, having level 6 in the Corki does mean more aggressive, consistent trading patterns up there in that top side, which could be very useful considering our grubs are about to spawn. Inspired is immediately at the objective and ready to start this up, but Yuuji is going to make his way up into the top side instead. Busio could be caught in a bad spot, drops the tether, flashes away as it procs, and Massu fires back towards Yuuji. Team Liquid tries to get their gank. They're going to get both summoner spells out of the FlyQuest support, but that's all they're going to acquire from it. Meanwhile, Inspired still putting in the work down here on the grubs, about to collect the second one of those, and it looks like FlyQuest should be able to acquire all 3.
Yeah, I think the hope from TL was, okay, we're pushed in, so we can't just go straight to the grubs. We won't be able to actually answer in that way. But if you go for a gank and you get a kill, then then maybe you can actually rotate over and get some of the grubs off the back of that. Busio played it well, though, throws down the tether early onto Yuuji, and then when the root is coming out from Core, he just flashes that, knowing if that hard CC does not land, he will not be dying. And in a comfortable spot as APA making his way down here. Bwipo has not spotted him. And Bwipo has no phase rush available, so we'll see if he gets caught.
Oh, Bwipo very low on mana, but it wouldn't even matter anyway. A nice petrifying gaze from APA, immediately followed up with a miasma. No way for Bwipo to get out of that one. First blood TL.
That was actually super clean from APA as well. You know, not the most obvious angle. You know, he's coming from the side there, but just barely had the angle to actually get the stun onto Bwipo. He R flashes from out of vision, so Bwipo doesn't even know it's coming. It's not like he can backstep that or turn around or face down towards the bottom of the lane to avoid it. He gets the kill, he gets the plate, pushes it in. They will be giving up plates in mid lane though, so Quad also getting paid. Despite the fact that he got a kill as well as a plate, he's only up 170 gold, right? So there is a cost to that, absolutely.
And for APA especially, being one of the players that a lot of Team Liquid fans,
No
did
flash.
I cast or curse it already? He might be in a little bit of danger now as Inspired has made his way down here to work together with Bwipo. Second cast of the Cyclone sets it up for Bwipo to knock it down. FlyQuest tie up the game 1-1.
Yeah, nice gank there. They immediately go in for him. Inspired just passed down. They know, okay, Cassio in his side lane without flash, that is easy pickings. Whether you have the phase rush or not doesn't really matter. So they're able to punish that, you know, get it right back. And it's kind of funny, like, even though that went so well for APA, he's actually kind of getting behind off of it a little bit, right? You know, it didn't really work out for them because at the end of the day, it is that one-for-one trade, but more plates, more farm went the way of Quad. So, yes, you know, you did get a kill, you got a little bit of gold, but Quad is basically dead even without having moved or done anything. And that kill went over to Bwipo, which now puts him a little bit ahead of Impact.
Well, the nice part for APA, even though he is down about half a level of EXP because of the amount of minions and whatnot that he lost from roaming away from mid lane, he was able to complete his Rod of Ages purchase around 10 minutes. Obviously, this item has more benefits than most for acquiring it early, so around that 20-minute mark means he's going to come into the full power of that purchase. So we'll see how much of a difference that can make for the side of Team Liquid. Quad really wants to get this third plate from the mid lane turret, just fires off another laser. Won't quite be able to knock that down, but of course, we've still got 3 minutes left with plates on the map, and considering FlyQuest have all 3 of the Void Grubs from Inspired's early play up there, if they can get control over these lanes, get push in these lanes, there's a lot of gold to be mined.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and I'm just so curious, you know, is APA really going to grab this late of a tier, or is he just full skipping it? Because it's 92% of pro games that, you know, you do actually get that tier and go Seraphs. Like, just the actual...
I feel like it's all the time.
The completed Seraphs is 92% of the time. So even more than that, they just have a tier and sit on it, right? Like, it's almost 100% of the time. So I would be pretty surprised, because Cassio is so mana hungry. But I have sometimes seen builds where people will do things like, they go super fast Roa, and then they just go into, like, Blackfire Torch and things like that to kind of help with some mana as well. But... you know, you do kind of need the tankiness sometimes from that Seraph shield because you are so short range.
Well, CoreJJ walking into the brush here, finds Inspired waiting on him, takes a little damage, no real threat. But yeah, we talk about Cassiopeia as this anti-engage champ. She needs to absorb engage, she needs to fire back because she is this very medium range character. I feel like part of that role is knowing you're going to take a couple of hits. You're not a Xerath or a Vel'Koz or something that sits a mile away and just can totally avoid all damage. Seraph just feels so synergistic with the way the character wants to play. So I would be surprised to see it left out as Yuuji makes his way down into the bottom lane here. Bwipo, however, did get that phase rush proc, very important for making a little bit of extra distance between himself, Impact, and Yuuji. And now FlyQuest do not want to allow Team Liquid to secure the second Drake for free as Impact gets jumped on here by Bwipo. Quick snappy trade coming out of the Galio. Busio and Inspired also both hanging around nearby.
Yeah, I mean, I think TL have a decent setup. They are kind of getting chunked out, but they have TP on top side, and it's actually Massu answering. So, you know, if APA, maybe you can just get a kill.
Oh, nicely done from APA there with a petrifying gaze. Massu steps back, goes for the Arc of Ruin for a little bit more damage, but Massu is down to 150 HP. Gets tagged by another noxious blast, but he does have enough health to not worry about the damage over time, whittling him down. So APA goes for the play. He gets Massu low, but he doesn't even force either one of the summoners. Massu knowing his limits on the Yunara, while the rest of his team knows they can take that second Drake.
Yeah, I thought that they were going to try to, you know, put APA up there, and then when they saw Massu respond, I thought they were going to look for a TP down and try to get a 5v4 around that dragon, but instead they decide, you know what, the setup isn't there, let's not actually go for it. And instead APA does look for a kill in that 1v1. Can't quite find it. But it is still only 800 gold separating the two teams. Both of them have a dragon. The Grubs in the advantage there for FlyQuest. They are scaling well, and they do have the added benefit of being the ones who can actually pick the fights, right? And I do think that's pretty dangerous against FlyQuest. I do like the comp from TL, but FlyQuest is really good generally about picking their fights and when and where they're going to go in. So it is always scary to give a team this strong the opportunity to choose when to fight.
And we're seeing that earlier advantage that we were talking about after APA roamed and Quid just forced waves into the mid lane turret, farmed a bunch of plates. Level 11 here on the Viktor. He's more than half of a level ahead of his opponent there in APA, and we know how scary Viktor can get once he's scaled, once he has all the levels, once he has all of his evolutions. He's looking like this is going to be a problem. He's almost got his Seraphs fully evolved.
Sidestep.
A little bit of scrapping back here in mid lane, but it's not going to lead to a whole lot of anything.
Yeah, that was really calm play there from Busio. Just uses the heal for move speed and sidesteps the Tangle Barbs coming in from Core, and as soon as that doesn't hit, again, he is not worried whatsoever, so TL have to back off. The tier is stacking as well for Quad. You know, he is almost fully stacked on that, and you can see the Cull just cashed out for Massu, so they did go for some of these scaling items, and you can see that now showing itself in the gold lead. It was 700 a second ago, and now it's 1.5K. Haven't really been able to slow down Massu at all. Yeon, of course, you know, is still going to be scaling reasonably well, but I do feel like this Yurana is really powerful later on in the game.
And the problem that I'm looking at, Isaac, if you're playing this from Team Liquid's side, there's no individual gold lead for any one man on TL. It's not like there's a point of power that you're trying to play around. So considering what we've already been talking about with Team Liquid wanting to absorb engages, we really need to see this team be at these objectives first, and we need to see them outplay when FlyQuest goes for the move.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you're just trying to walk in and just, like, throw down Equalizer, throw down all your AoE damage, and they do have a ton of AoE damage, but there's so many answers on the FlyQuest side. You're going to have the Mantra shields coming through from Busio. He already has a Redemption coming through. He has Summoner Heal. There's shield from the Q on Viktor. There's the passive shield on the Galio. There's the ulti shield that has given magic shield to your entire team when you ult. So there's so many ways to actually absorb the AoE that's going to come through from Pop Blossom and Equalizer and Cassio that you have got to be pretty perfect from TL if you were not the ones that are being walked into. If you're the ones trying to walk in and find a fight, it's just there's so many answers that FlyQuest have to be able to shut down any sort of attempt at an engage.
And what you said earlier about the scaling items from FlyQuest, the thing about being the team that gets to decide, okay, we're going to fight now, is you can also decide, okay, no fight. There's no reason to fight. We've got a 1-to-1 game with a over 2,000 gold lead for one side. FlyQuest is just quietly building items that are best in peace times and completely refusing to go into war times. They are just scaling forward, and eventually it's going to get to a problem. We saw it in Game 1 yesterday of C9 versus Shopify. Shopify was just not doing anything for a very long time. They finally decide to try to fight at Otacon. C9's 3,500 gold ahead. They just lose. That's the problem here for Team Liquid because they can't keep allowing FlyQuest to just walk away with a game like this. Busio might be in a little danger here. Yuuji dropping down the pillar, gets a decent bit of damage, but there it is with a redemption. Busio still continuing to walk away. He's very low, but he's not dead, and that's all that matters. Bwipo with a Justice Punch to make a little bit of extra distance. Clear that space between himself and Team Liquid as they cannot get anything else off of their play. It's 50 seconds until the Drake spawns. Impact just used his ultimate, so that cooldown will be closed, but I don't think it'll be ready as soon as the objective spawns.
No, it shouldn't be back up. And I mean, Busio did use his redemption there, but it was a really smart early redemption, realizing, okay, I'm caught out in a bit of an awkward spot, drop the redemption, lived, you know, even with that landing and everything, with about 100, 150 health, something like that. Bwipo did a good job covering for him. And when you commit the Equalizer for support, you're definitely going to be disappointed when it does not get a kill. But, you know, when we're talking about TL, I talked about it in the interviews, we have to talk about their bot lane. Yeon specifically has been a massive story for this team. You know, even last split, when they have been struggling, people are kind of saying it's Yeon versus the world at times, right? And you have to give credit to Core. He's down there too, holding up that rock. But the top side of the map has been struggling, and let's see if we can get the big performance.
Immediately, though, Inspired tries to go in for the engage on Team Liquid. They wanted to bring in that Wombo combo with a Wukong and the Galio, but they don't quite find their mark. Herald is going to be summoned, though, and they'll just use that to try to torpedo towards mid lane. Nice pillar from Yuuji. Blocks the Herald from being able to complete the charge, so that does not mean they get any value out of it. The Herald instead just going to crash into that terrain as Busio wants to flash forward for the tether proc into CoreJJ, but Core's able to flash away. Now FlyQuest going back towards the Drake. It's down to 4,000 HP, but a TP's coming
Viktor.
in. FlyQuest ready to try to fight. Quad immediately having to flash as he arrives with his TP. APA chasing after the Viktor. Multiple Twin Fangs hitting the target, but a terrible petrifying gaze. APA spins a big cooldown for a whole lot of nothing, and now FlyQuest has to be careful with their AD carry. Massu backing away a little bit further as Impact and Quad keeping each other busy on the left side of the fight. The Wukong clone absorbs any follow-up there from Team Liquid, and it looks like FlyQuest is going to get the objective and get back out. Yeah, no problem at all. And I mean, this is kind of one of the problems when you don't have any real hard engage there. You know, TLC Quad TPing in his side brush by himself, and that seems so illegal. But they didn't have anyone in position to actually really lock him down and stop him there. And I think that led to APA feeling a little bit desperate. He had flashed out after him, and then once he committed the flash to chase him, I think he's like, oh, I gotta get this kill, right? Yeah.
But then uses the Petrifying Gaze as well. Can't get anything with that. Now Massu is just gonna walk forward and finish off this tower. So now they get feats. That's upgraded boots for the whole squad because they already had the objective one secured. Bwipo was pushing down bot lane during all that, so he denied at least a couple minions. And FlyQuest just getting further and further ahead. We have had no real fights, and it is a 3K lead now from FlyQuest. They're just separating themselves through pure map movements and setups.
And I've commented on this before, but I always believe that the value of the extra move speed from the feats of strength from the empowered boots is much better when one of the teams doesn't have dashes, when one of the teams is just walking at you or away from you. And that's what Trundle, what Cassiopeia, what Rumble all have to do. So another big bonus there in FlyQuest pocket. They are 3,500 gold ahead as the Otacon is spawned.
And this was something subtle, you know, early on in that Dragon setup, but Busio trading his flash with CoreJJ, even though you're not going to get killed there, I think the flash is so much less valuable for the Karma than it is for the Neeko, and it's not even close, right? So if you can actually trade your flash with the Neeko as a Karma, that means there's no flash pop blossom, there's no explosive engage whatsoever, and now Bwipo spotting them going in here. They're on the Otacon. FlyQuest has got to get down here. Quad was fully on the top side. Inspired was back in base, so TL are just trying to rush. Yeah, Team Liquid, they are taking B first to the objective very seriously, immediately bringing this thing down to about 4,000 HP. The Otacon's below 3K now. FlyQuest seeing if maybe there's anything they can do, but the Otacon is already secured by Team Liquid. Beautifully done there, rushing the objective, recognizing they had the time, and stealing it away right in front of FlyQuest. Yeah, that was really well done. You track the teleport, you see Quad on top side, you realize, okay, we can actually go for this. And I'm curious to see if they had eyes on Inspired when he was basing. You know, did they actually spot him basing to know that he was also not going to be there? But they just find an opportunity there to rush that down, get themselves some experience, some adaptive force. It's not going to show in the gold, but of course it is going to close the actual advantage the power that FlyQuest has a little bit here. Quad right back out towards that top side, though, being covered by Inspired. And if he's not going to get the tower, he is going to get it incredibly low. And I think he should be able to finish it. The question is, does he die for this? Inspired's coming, though. Tower's still alive. Yuuji and APA going in as Quad tries to turn it around with the Arcane Storm, and Inspired immediately follows it up with a Cyclone. APA is out of there. And Team Liquid thought they might have had a chance, but FlyQuest stops that. Impact with a solo kill on Bwipo down on the other side of the map. Gets something back for TL. Yeah, that's really important there for TL. When you're losing on the top side, when you're falling behind, you need some sort of avenue back into this game, and maybe Impact can be that. There's been a ton of talk about how Impact has not been playing up to his standards, but doing well in this matchup. Bwipo had the counter pick. This is a matchup he's super comfortable on, and Impact gets that solo kill. Trying to go for the execute here, and he does get it with that TP coming in. That is really well done. Gets a solo kill, dies to the tower without giving any kill gold over there to Quad, who committed his teleport for it. So that's a really good death from Impact, and he's now on 2 items. So giving them some sort of a way back in potentially, but when you're looking at the leads everywhere else, yeah, it's only 28 gold on the top side, but everywhere else it is getting tough as Inspired is getting further and further ahead. So this is, you know, we're going to see, do they actually spot him basing? That was my question. I think that's what the observers are going to show us here. So they did not have vision on the base. I think they just must have intuited that he probably would be going back to base on this timing, or that they were just fully down to say, you know what, we know Quad's not here, that's enough. This is just a great counter engage here from Inspired. Well, not even really a counter engage. Until we're trying to back it off, but really well done. Flashes in, gets in on him. Bwipo interrupts the TP there on Impact, and then that allows Impact to chase him down. Bwipo was in a rough spot, so Impact does get stopped. My guess is that Bwipo had no phase rush, so after he actually interrupts the teleport, he's kind of exposing himself in a pretty rough spot. And you can see a bit of frustration on the face there of Spawn with how things are going.
I mean, it's a noble sacrifice from Bwipo, right? You don't want Impact to go up there and potentially turn that 2v2 into 2 kills for the enemy team, but you almost know that you're going to die as soon as you do it. So making the noble play for the team as Team Liquid trying to see if they can find something here on a quad. A big pop blossom for the engage, but where's the rest of the follow-up? CoreJJ is already down, and FlyQuest counterpunch just hits harder. Quad is still alive. Yeon's trying to fire back into the lines of FlyQuest, but he ain't finding a whole lot. Impact's going to be killed off next. Bwipo takes him down with the winds of war as APA needs a couple more Twin Fangs. Quad flashes away, and Massu's going in for the auto attacks on the Snake as Bwipo's in a 1v2, and he wins those! Triple kill for Wide Bwipo, ace for FlyQuest.
And it's a clean ace. They lost no one at all. We can watch this one more time. This is what I was talking about. If TL does go for an engage, it must be perfect. Look at this. Mantra shield comes through. Galio ultimate passive comes through. The Q shield from Viktor comes through. There's so many forms of shielding. They set everything at quad, and he still just kind of walks it off. He didn't even have to flash. It's crazy. And then on the other side, Bwipo was getting so much work done. And I really like how they play around APA. As soon as the Q hits onto quad, they know, all right, well, Massu, now it's your time to step forward. A Q gets thrown down on the Busio. Massu just gets shielded up, runs straight in. Bwipo on the other side is winning out on that fight, barely surviving as well. And FlyQuest just making it look easy, 5-0.
And the way Bwipo moved specifically in that last engagement with Yuuji and Yeon to make sure that they were both standing on top of each other as his taunt proc so that he could get the passive slam with the Winds of War on both was absolutely perfect. He understood the assignment and he aced it. Damage in the last team fight. The AD carries were topping the charts. Honestly, everybody was just pouring damage everywhere. But like you said, FlyQuest absorbed most of this through shields and healing.
Yep, and that is the power of their composition. Tons of AoE magic damage. Inspired, looking for this engage, and Impact, he is out and alone.
Yeah, Impact could be in some danger here. Nearly gets one back onto Inspired, but again, man, Busio with these redemptions is just calling in the artillery strike of healing every single time, and it's doing wonders.
Sending the care package from long range.
Exactly.
Dropping it down, healing him up. Bwipo, check in. Is there anything suspicious going on around that Baron? Because they know it's desperation hours for TL, right? The only way TL comes back is through something crazy, and Yuuji has no flash, and here comes Inara. You are in trouble, my friend.
Yeah, this could be a bit of an issue here. Should still be fine, just walks away from it. Doesn't have to spend the ultimate defensively or anything like that. But FlyQuest, 8,500 gold lead. They're on Soul Point. Like, there are very few options left in this game for Team Liquid.
I mean, you talked about the value of move speed against a team that walks at you. How about the value of Hex Soul against a team that has to walk at you and is getting non-stop, like zapped and slowed by that Soul? That is horrible.
That's even better than shoes.
Exactly.
That's
and I mean, you already have the move speed as well from Karma, like AoE shielding of the team. We've talked a lot about all of the shielding, all of the power that FlyQuest has, and now with this monster gold lead, feels like they're probably one good fight away from closing it out.
Okay, Team Liquid continuing to yield ground to FlyQuest as they push forward and look to take over the TL jungle. Bwipo going in there after APA, the Justice Punch, and everything just knocks him down. Redemption to guarantee a little bit extra as Massu and Inspired show up. APA is gone, man. The Cassiopeia 1-4-0. The blind pick Cassio has not paid the dividends Team Liquid was hoping for.
No, it hasn't at all. And I mean, who says Karma's not a roaming champ? Look at him affecting those side lanes. Redemption.
He's everywhere, brother, and so are those redemption cats. The objective bounty claim to the bottom lane of the Tier 1 tournament, at least by Impact, as now Team Liquid scrambling to try to do something about this Baron. Impact TP's up, but it's going to be a little bit too little, a little bit too late. A little bit of a Baron for FlyQuest, 9,500 gold lead now.
Yeah, Yeon does throw over the Frost Bomb Rocket, gets the Baron down about 570, I think is what I saw. So did get kind of close on the steal attempt, but of course, that is always going to be an absolute Hail Mary. And TL, only 2 kills to their name. Very controlled stuff here from Fly. They get the Baron, they're 10K ahead, and they can push and take down these Tier 2s. There's still a lot of gold to collect on the map here. And so I think we're going to see them get out, push these lanes up, try to get all that Tier 2 gold, and then either, if there's an opportunity to actually just end the game, they'll go for that. But otherwise, you just retreat back to this Hex Soul here in a minute 20, and you look to claim that as well. So TL is going to have to find some sort of an opportunity. But games like this are a perfect example of why people are often nervous to draft comps that have little to no engage. Because, you know, obviously at this point, any comp would be in trouble. But if you start to get behind even a little bit as a no engage comp, it's very hard, right? Because usually when you're losing, what do you say to come back? Let's get a pick, right? You know, that's generally kind of the thought process. But TL just don't really have the tools to do that.
Okay, Bwipo now getting jumped on. Team Liquid seeing if maybe they can try to pick the Galio, but it just doesn't work. Bwipo makes some distance and then immediately re-engages. Now the rest of FlyQuest coming up right behind him. The tier 2 turret is already down and Inspired's going in looking for the damage. Yeon is gone. APA on the run. CoreJJ about to fall next as Impact can't even survive in his own base. Quad and Bwipo chasing away the remaining players on Team Liquid. There's only 2 of them and they're not about to do a whole lot. No ultimate for either the Trundle or the Cassiopeia, and they're staring down the barrel of a 5-man FlyQuest push. Bottom lane inhibitor is already gone. Mid lane inhibitor is about to follow, as are the Nexus turrets. APA and Yuuji, they'll scramble. They'll try to buy a couple of extra seconds, but that's about all they'll be able to get as APA takes a lot of damage, flashing back into the safety of the fountain steps, but it still might not be enough. Massu continues firing. FlyQuest made game 1 look easy.
15,500 gold lead here before 30 minutes for FlyQuest. Super controlled early game here. And then when the fights broke out, they just dominated that clean 5-for-0 ace, making it look easy by the Dragon.
FlyQuest, they were buying the early items again for the slow-paced game. Team Liquid with no way to engage, and you don't even have a tier on Cassiopeia, so you don't have the same level of scaling that your opponents are investing into. It just felt like Team Liquid never had an option to do what they wanted to do on Summoner's Rift, and they're just sitting there waiting for the clock to strike midnight.
They absolutely were, but at the very least, it is fearless. They took Cassio not only away from themselves, but Quad can't play it either. Lounge, what do you think? Is it going to pay off?
I don't know about that.